Okay, guys, let's go into our prediction. It was a great weekend of games, and could Chelsea be sneaking up, up the table without anyone paying attention to them? We've got games against Newcastle. Man City go to Newcastle starting off the weekend, and then you've got Brentford against West Ham. We got Arsenal playing to Leicester. And then you've got Chelsea at home to Brighton FC. That will be a very interesting game. Both teams, looking like they're in a state of ascendancy. You also got Nottingham Forest against Fulham. Can you believe Nottingham Forest are still unbeaten in the league in the first couple of games in the Premiership? And then you've got Everton against Crystal Palace. You've also got Wolverhampton playing to Liverpool. Liverpool go away to Wolverhampton. And then on Sunday, we've got Ipswich versus Aston Villa. And then another big game, Man United versus Tottenham Hotspurs. And then to round up the weekend game, we've got Bournemouth versus Southampton on Monday. So as usual, we're going to talk about, games that we're going to predict. So I'm really looking forward to this one. I'm going to start with you, Carly, on the predictions here. Manchester United versus Spurs. How do you see this one playing out?
Two teams that for some reason their managers will always be under all kinds of pressures. And for Ange on his part, it's like you have a team that in parts they look good, they look like they can play good football, they can move the ball around, they are very quick on the counter attack, and somehow they still don't get the results because they keep leaking in goals that they shouldn't leak. Then you look at Manchester United with the heavy investment in the side, a manager who has been given time to bring players that he trusts, players that he believes can get the job done, and somehow it keeps falling short. Even though I always point to the fact that in the last, how many seasons he's won one trophy, for the side. Last season we saw him beat Manchester City to win a cup, and that tells you the story of that team. That team can be fantastic on the day, if they are going to be fantastic. But then on other days, they don't look like the team that you would expect to be up there. But then I think, and this my sincere, analogy of whatever. I think the last 2-3 games they've played, the manager is beginning to finally find the mix. He's finally grown the balls to drop Rashford to the bench, make the forward line a bit more dynamic as opposed to just pace. Um, Zexi has come into the side. He might not be scoring a lot of goals, right? But the boys, the way he thinks, the way he runs into space, the way he positions himself, and then he can pass the ball as well. And that's what Zexi brings to that forward line. Garnacho can run, Garnacho can hold the ball, and that's one of the things he has over Rashford, who just wants to run at defenders 90 minutes of the games. But, so with Zexi, Garnacho in the side, and then with that young man, Kobe Maino in the middle, they have a trio that can actually, when they are on good form, and then, of course, not forgetting Bruno Fernandes, the quartet, when they are on form, they can give any defense a problem. And I think they're going to give Tottenham Hotspur a lot of problem in this one. But then the question is, because at the back is one of the biggest problems they face, is putting together the right mix at the back. Onana is not as poor as we've seen him to be in the last how many seasons that he's been in England. But then he's never been covered properly at the back because the manager keeps chopping and changing. But then it looks like the lead has come into that side and is looking pretty solid. Mazwari has also come into that side. He's looking pretty solid. Dalot is also looking solid. So I think finally the manager is finding the right balance to that defense line. And that's where, because the battle is going to be won and drawn in both defenses and both attacks. Because when it comes to midfield, I think they are evenly matched. And maybe Spurs have a little bit extra in Madison over over Manchester United. But then with Manchester United, with the way they are always set up, I think it is how the defense will keep out the marauding runs of Son, Dominic Solanke's brilliance, and whoever plays, on the other side of the attack for them. So I think the key battles are going to be defense versus attack on both sides. Both sides have good players going forward, but then defensively they keep shipping in goal. But then Manchester United will look at their last 3 games and they'll feel like, okay, yeah, we've been able to, for the first time, we've kept back to back clean sheets. They kept clean sheets against Barnsley, Southampton, and Crystal Palace, and that should give them some sort of confidence. So how Son and his team will break down, and his gang up front will break down this defense, is going to be a battle to really watch. And my prediction, I think I'm going for a Manchester United victory, 2-1 to Manchester United. That defense will finally concede a goal, but they will win this one 2-1.
Very, very interesting. 2-1 for Manchester United. Face, I'm going to come to you there because I need to hear the context about this game. Manchester United Spurs. Spurs, had a convincing win against Brentford. Manchester United, you could say, leaped over the line. They kept a clean sheet, Carly has talked about, against Crystal Palace. Who do you give the edge in this game? Would Angie Ball, dominate at Old Trafford?
If I'm looking at what the bookmakers are saying here, the bookmakers are actually giving Man U the edge to win this with a 41% against a Tottenham 34%. Will that be my prediction? Hold on for that. Let me give you a bit of perspective in terms of their rivalry. When you look at these two guys, they are really old clubs. They've been there since the 18th. In fact, their first meeting, the two clubs met, I think they met in January 28th, 1899, which was in an FA Cup tie where United, then known as Newton Heath, they won 5-3 against Spurs. So the all-time record, Manchester has actually dominated the fixtures. As at 2024, they have won more matches against Tottenham. They have well over 90 wins compared to a Spurs roughly 50 victories. So if you look at both teams' starts to the league, this is not where they expect I think they want to be. If you look at the season in perspective also, both have actually had the same number except the goals scored. So both of them had 2 wins. Both of them have 1 draw. Both of them had 2 losses. And both has, same points, which is 7 points out of 5 matches. So if you look at the difference here, the only difference here is the firepower of Tottenham, because they have scored like 9 goals, while Man U have scored just 5 goals in 5 matches, which is an average of 1 goal per match. So for me, interestingly, both teams, they've not started the season well. So if you look at those perspectives and based on even what Carly has pointed out in terms of the attacking prowess of Tottenham and the defensive solidity a bit of Man U, and for the fact that Man U is playing at home, I want to disagree on the bookmakers here. I think it's going to be an exciting game, and I predict 2-2 draw for this.
Very interesting. 2-2 draw. Some really good points there. Femi, who do you think has the edge in this game? Where do you see the difference between these two teams early on in the season?
Well, I mean, to be fair, Kali's really delved a lot into the psyche of both teams and the players on display. I think overall, if you look at Spurs, they kind of like look like a team that threatened to go and do great things. But as we all know, then they end up doing very little. Since 2022-23, Spurs have played altogether, they played about 18 games. And in those 18 games, they've only won 4. And most of those wins have come at home. They've actually lost 11 of those with 5 draws. So when it comes against the traditional Big 6 in the last 3 seasons, Spurs have not genuinely always gone away from home and done a job. If you're a betting man, you definitely not say Spurs to win 100%. But one thing you can guarantee with the Spurs team these days is there will be endeavor. There will be work rate. There was a time Spurs can be really poor. I'm sure you'd agree with me. They can lose 5-0, 6-0 away from home. This Spurs team is not going to do that anymore. And because in the Premier League, if you can put in the big work, then really and truly you've got a chance. And that is the only place where I can look at Spurs and say, we're at Man United, given that United are not a team full of confidence and blowing teams away at the minute. They're very susceptible to the odd mistake, and they can lose confidence as well. So in a nutshell, it's a game that is going to be decided on who turns up on the day with the quality that they have and use that quality to full effect. And because that's very difficult to tell, I'm just going to sit on the fence and say, because it's a Sunday afternoon kickoff as well, 4:30 in front of the Sky Sports cameras, the whole world watching, the players know it. Maybe they'll turn up and do a 2-2. Could be as high as a 3-3 because both defenses are absolutely horrendous on their day. I know Khalid's talked about the late, about Mazraoui coming in and doing a good job. We know the other two guys, Dallo does a good job sometimes at left back, doesn't it? And then the short Argentine, Martinez, no disrespect to him, I mean. He does a job as well, but I'm not a big fan of him personally. So that's probably why I'll call him the tall Argentine if I have to be nice to him. So overall, I think that defense can be piss poor when they want to be piss poor. But if they turn up, like I said, and put the quality they have on display, then you may just have a 2-2 of a game or a 1-1. But if they all go and sleep like they normally expect, like I normally expect of them, then trust me, it might end up being a 3-3. That's what I'm seeing it to be like at the minute.
Okay, so we've got draws going on here. I think for me very quickly, I think Spurs, had a very good reaction to going 1 goal down, I think 20 seconds against Brentford, and eventually going out 3-1 winners there. But I'm going to give the edge to Manchester United. I think they're at home in this game. They've come off, some really good games that should give them high. Rashford has been in and among the goals in a lot of games. And I'm going to go with a 2-1 victory for Manchester United. I'm just going to give the edge to them. I think I won't be surprised if Spurs scores first, but I think Manchester United would just get that edge over at home. Right, let's go to the next one. Chelsea versus Brighton. Brighton are notoriously difficult customers for any team. How do you see this game panning out?
Well, it's Chelsea against the supposed feeder team, isn't it? I'm sure that all the Chelsea scouts will be out the game trying to source out the next one they're going to pick from Brighton or maybe the next two. But I mean, on a more serious note, Brighton, like you said, they're very notorious for. And I talked about industry. If you play hard, you play well, you're going to be there and thereabouts for results. And Brighton have done that really well this season. Suddenly, Danny Welbeck knows how to score goals and very regularly too as well. And he's even putting in free kicks. Have you noticed? So if Welbeck brings his shooting boots, Joao Pedro will score goals because he's a live wire too. And of course, Mitoma will go past people. So interesting game because Chelsea have the players to hurt any team as well at the minute. And they looks like their confidence is building. I am not going to jump on that ship very quickly or that boat because one of my Chelsea friends was saying to me, you guys were moaning about Man City. We don't moan. We just beat people 3-0. I was like, you won 3 games this season. And that's 3 wins in the last 77 games. Please don't get ahead of yourself. You might start to get back to where you were before. But I expect Chelsea to really, really turn up for this one. But again, Brighton, they will turn up 100%. And you can't tell what's going to happen on the day. So overall, if I was a betting man, I'll probably keep my money in my pocket. Maybe that's why I'm not a betting man anyway, because I don't know who to give this one to. Difference makers, Mitoma for Brighton. I've mentioned the players who can do a job, but also for Chelsea, they're the home team. It's 3 o'clock on a Saturday. There's no cameras there. That's just the downside. When the games are not when they're not played live in front of the English audience, it's very difficult to know what the players are going to do. I love the games that are televised. You just know the players are going to respond to the cameras. But 3 o'clock, they know everybody will be watching the highlights. Everybody else watching around the world, they don't care, do they? Those players. So let's just say because of their recent good form, Chelsea will probably get a draw. But I don't see Brighton losing this. Brighton are too decent a team to lose to this Chelsea team that are getting to know what to do on the ball. They've beaten Wolves and West Ham, who just don't know what they're doing, to be honest. And they only won 1-0 the other day as well. So they won 3 games, and 2 are against teams that are just awful. And then 1-0 against, I think, Bournemouth, or whoever that was with a last minute goal. So I'm going to tell you genuinely, Eddie, that Brighton will get a result I expect. So maybe a 1-1 this one. Sorry. Maybe not what you're looking to hear, but 1-1 definitely for me. So,
Kali, I'm going to come to you on this one. Chelsea Brighton, Enzo Maresca, has he cracked the code? Because they've had a turnstile of managers coming into Chelsea, and it seems like it always starts a little bit rocky, and then it seems like Pochettino just before he left seemed to have gotten Chelsea on the right path. Enzo has come in, he's made some key decisions, sending players the other way, but also bringing some players in. Do you think Enzo Maresca has cracked the code, and is Chelsea now a genuine threat to everyone else?
I think he's cooking. I think Maresca is cooking. And one of the things he's figured out is how to partner in midfield, and how to play at the back. And he's been blessed with the likes of Fofana, Darabioyo, and the rest of them, who Cucurella, who all of them, it can sort of interchange, between them. The game against Bournemouth, Fofana and Colwill were the ones at the back. Fofana was not in the side. It was Fofana and Colwill played at the back. In the game against West Ham, Fofana went to right back, Adarabioyo came to the middle, and Colwill and Cucurella completed that one. But then Fernandes and Caicedo have been the constants in that midfield. But up front is where, at the start of the season, they couldn't score goals. But all of a sudden, a few weeks down, they are scoring goals for fun. They've scored 9 and conceded none in the last 3 games, and that's a testament to someone who is cooking, So I'll say he's finally finding the side. Now, my only problem with the team is Nkunku. I think Nkunku is a more natural finisher than Nicholas Jackson. But then you look at Jackson, he's beginning to score goals, and that gives the manager a bit of a headache in terms of benching him or starting him. So they have two strikers who can score goals. Madueke is enjoying himself. Jadon Sancho has come to the place, and it looks like a new player. He's contributing, he's creating, he's giving them a new dimension on the left side of the attack, and that's beautiful to see. So now Cole Palmer can focus on what he's doing in the middle. So Nicholas Jackson is free because services are coming from left, right, center. It's not only Cole Palmer, like it did for most part of last season, creating all the chances. Now there are multiple sorts of chances created for him. So Nicholas Jackson can score goals. And I think that's why they are scoring more than 1 goal in games now. That's why they've scored 3 and 5 in that one. And most notably, they've not conceded in 3 games. Brighton and Hove Albion, on their part, yeah, they have a set defensive line, but that defensive line will always concede goals, and that's a big problem. In their last 3 games, their last 3 games they played goalless against Ipswich Town, but the following 2 games, both in the EFL and the Premier League, that's the game against Nottingham Forest, they played a 2-2 draw, right? In a game that Nottingham Forest could have, if they had been a bit smarter up front, could have actually won. Against Wolverhampton Wanderers, they were lucky to win that game 3-2. But the common thing here is they concede goals. Against a Chelsea side with Palmer, Madueke, Sancho, and Nicholas Jackson or Nkunku that are enjoying themselves right now, they are finding a good form. And you know how we say this all the time, that once a team gets into a rhythm and they start winning, it builds their confidence, the team gels better, and they perform better as a whole. And that's going to be a problem. And my key battles will definitely be what happens every time Cole Palmer and his gang run at that Brighton and Hove Albion defense line. They can't seem to keep out goals, and that's going to be their biggest headache. That's going to be what the manager is going to be worried about. You call them to when you were introducing the previous section, you talked about Chelsea being that team that is sneaking up the table, and I say yes, they are a team to watch right now. They're a team that you've got to pay attention to, right about now. Otherwise, you talked about Welbeck scoring goals. We've always known. Femi talked about Welbeck scoring. We've always known Welbeck can score goals. He might not do it the season long, but Welbeck will always give you goals. He's getting older, more matured. He's adding a bit more to his football, and that comes with the passing and playing free kick, taking free kicks. He's added that to the game, so they're going to be looking for a lot of set pieces, around that 18-yard box, so that maybe some magic can come out of this. But then Mitoma, Adingra, they've got their work cut out against the fullbacks of Chelsea. They've got their work cut out. Welbeck will need a lot of miracle to get past Fofana and whoever partners him at the back. I think Chelsea will be too strong for Brighton. Chelsea have had they've gotten the better of Brighton the last 3 times they've played. So I think it's going to just continue in this one. And I see Chelsea winning this game about 2-0.
Yeah, I think to agree with you on this one. I've watched Chelsea play a number of times this season, and there is something that seems to be happening, and it's not just in the pitch, but it's also happening upstairs as well. In terms of the Chelsea players, their mentality in the player, and it seems like he's now figured out how he wants to play, week on week. The evidence is a clean sheet. You've talked about that. You've talked about the prowess. For me, I look at Cole Palmer. I think he's a very crucial, component of what's making Chelsea think in this season. He's already assisted 4 goals, and he seems to have a good partnership, both with Madueke and also with Jackson. So just like you, I'm going for a 2-0 to victory for Chelsea. I think they play at home. They're on the ascendancy. I just can't see, Brighton, outsmarting Chelsea. Brighton certainly got the talent to trouble any team. We've seen that, what they did at the Emirates. But I think that Chelsea is just that step a little bit ahead in their program. So I'm going to go with a 2-0 victory to Chelsea. Right. Our final game of the weekend is Manchester City, or rather Newcastle against Manchester City. I mean, Newcastle is always a very difficult place for any team to go and try and get a result. But we're talking about Manchester City. We're talking about Haaland. Femi, I'm going to start with you on this one. Will Man City be testing their first defeat in the Premier League against Newcastle? How do you see this game going?
I mean, sometimes you look at the players that are available and the players that are not available, and what impact they can have on the game. And I'm going to say, De Bruyne always has an impact. He had an impact last season when you talked about Bob Oscar's goal. They need to come in and score that goal first. But Man City will not have that same Oscar Bob available now for a long time as well. But Rodri is going to be a big miss, isn't it? De Bruyne, we don't know if he's going to be available. So City will lose a lot of their firepower. They still got Haaland to score goals. But remember, there are other players last season, like the wonderful Julian and Alvarez, who's gone off to go and play for Atletico Madrid now. So I am slightly concerned about what Man City will offer in terms of firepower. They would not be short on keeping the ball, but you need players who can turn that kind of play into goals. And that's what the directness of De Bruyne can bring when he sets goals up. But also you need someone who can break up play as well, because Newcastle will be all over the place in terms of trying to force them back. And if you look at the players that are available for Newcastle, genuinely, it's only since the start of the season, I'll probably say Jamal Lascelles could have been somebody that maybe have been knocking on the maybe Sven Botman as well. But those two, they're not missing them too much. So everything is just like in Newcastle's hands. If you look at what they've got, Callum Wilson is a few weeks away but it's also not going to be a big hit if it comes in immediately anyway. Isaac is already a big hit. So overall, I'm going to think Newcastle have what it takes to win the game. But worst case scenario, maybe Man City could hold that for a draw. So I'll probably say because of the ability that Man City have, this could end the 1-1 Eddie. That's just otherwise I'll probably be giving it to Newcastle, like you said. And maybe it's Man City's first loss of the season, but I know they're capable, so I'll probably say 1-1 Eddie, just to keep it safe and not have it blow up in my face, mate.
1-1, 1-1. I'm gonna go to your face, right? You've always got the stats, you've got the context. Any chance for an upset for Newcastle against Man City?
In football, there is always a chance, and that is why even when the bookmakers give, if they give their prediction or what they think will happen, there is always something. Even if it's a 1%, is a chance. But when you now look at the weight of the chances, given to the two teams, that gives you an idea that okay, this is who they overwhelmingly feel will win the game. So if you look at what the bookmakers are giving for this match, they are giving Newcastle a 19% chance to win and a City a 60% chance to win. So that gives you a pointer that they overwhelmingly believe City is going to win this match. For me, do I actually accept what they've given? I think so also. I think City is going to be a tough match, no doubt about that. But I think City will edge this a bit for the fact that they will want to bounce back from, it's not a defeat, but it almost looks like a defeat, the match they played against Arsenal. It will be fair also not going back a bit of memory lane, give you a bit of context in terms of how these two teams pairs, These are old teams, the first time they met was in November 1893. And that was in the old second division. Newcastle won the game 3-2. And that marked the beginning of their rivalry. Over the years, Newcastle has actually dominated this matchup, for a very long time until the new transformation of Man City, where they brought in players and all the coaches and Pep took over. So there was a change in fortune for City, and since then they have actually been dominating most of the ties. Now, if you look at the last 5 games in terms of where they are and what has happened, you could see that Newcastle has won 1 out of the last 5 matches they played, and Man City has won 4. So it gives you also a pointer that, which favors what the bookmakers have predicted in terms of this match. Both teams are informed, clearly. They've started well. Why City has won 4 out of their 5 league matches. Newcastle has won 3, drawn 1, and lost 1. So it gives a point also that both teams are informed, and it may not be if you look at what the bookmakers are giving, you see that it's like an overwhelming favoring City. But to me, I think it will be keenly contested, but I think City will still edge this, with a win of 2-1.
2-1 to Manchester. Let me invite the voice of reason, Carly. No Rodri. no Rodri for City, no De Bruyne for City. What are we looking at here? Can City still be dominating in this game, or are we beginning to see chinks in the armor for Manchester City? How do you see this one going?
So Manchester City might not be at their fluid best, but they will still, be Manchester City. Yes, Rodri is not there, very big miss for them. But how many teams can actually, with or without Rodri, can actually hurt Manchester City when they are in full flow? Newcastle failed to do that last season, so it's not. I don't think that Manchester City will be worried. There is a Gundogan to step in place of De Bruyne. He might not be as quick as he used to be, but he's still as intelligent and is a bit more matured, in the way he plays the ball. And everybody talks about Kevin De Bruyne and his passes. Yes, he's one of one, in world football. But then Gundogan passes the ball so well as well. He knows how to thread those eye of the needle passes. He can score goals as well. So he comes into the side, takes over the creative role in the middle, while Bernardo Silva, Doku, and whoever else, will play. One of the biggest problems Newcastle will have is if Grealish starts against them. Grealish seems to be, every time I've seen him on the pitch this season, he seems to be hungrier than ever. He seems to be in the mood to prove a point, at all times. And I think that's going to be, Doku is one where everybody knows Doku wants to dribble. He wants to cut back. He wants to do, but Jack Grealish, yes, he can try to dribble every now and then, but one of the things Grealish will do again, he will look for that pass in the box. Grealish pushes you into the box and looks for a pass in the box, or he takes a shot, because every time Grealish does this thing, a lot of people don't give him a lot of credit for that. He has created worrying situations for opponents every time he shoots in the box. And that's one of the things that he brings into the side. But Kovacic is going to come into the side to take over from Rodri. He's going to play in place of Rodri. So that settles that for them. Kovacic might not be Rodri, but on his day, it can be a big player for them, as well. So I don't think there's going to be the drop in quality is going to be so much that Newcastle will come and dominate Manchester City. But then Newcastle at home have gone on a run. 10 games they are yet to be beaten at home, but this might just be the end of that run. Newcastle have not really impressed me against Tottenham Hotspur. Yes, they won 2-1, but you could see, with the way they played that game, that it could have swung anywhere. It could have really swung anywhere. And I'm not very confident when I look at Isak and the rest of the gang up front for Newcastle United. But at the back is where they're going to have a lot of problem stopping the marauding runs of Haaland, Bernardo Silva, Doku or Grealish or whoever is there. So I think Manchester City will have enough in them. This is not the game they will. This is not where they will start, or this is not the game where they will record their first loss of the season. So I think it's going to end Manchester City 2, Newcastle 1.
I can't see past the City victory in this game. I think that even without De Bruyne, they still have a very good supply line, with Foden and Bernardo Silva supplying Haaland with the business. And Haaland plays very well against Newcastle, as well. And they might try to suffocate him. They might try to put pressure on him. But I think this season we've seen Haaland score different types of goals. It seems like he's evolved his goal scoring technique in the Premier League. And guess what? He was very fresh, didn't have Euros to worry about. So he's as fresh as anything going into the season. So I think that should scare a lot of teams in terms of, Haaland, perhaps, creating a masterclass in this game. Newcastle, yeah, they're very good at St. James Park. But I cannot see them, sustaining and cutting off Man City and stopping them from scoring for 90 minutes. I think it's just very difficult, to do that against this team, whether Rodri is there or De Bruyne is not there. So I'm going to go for a 3-0 victory for Manchester City in this game. It looks like a big scoreline, but I think that, Man City always tend to
Is
respond.
that Eddie speaking or is it AI speaking?
Listen, Man City always tend to respond, after a down game. Just when you think that, they've just had a very rough game. And you look at what happened in the cup game as well. It looks as if they struggled, to get over Watford. That was a great goal by Tom Haynes, to bring that goal to something that looked like, but to be honest, City were never really in doubt. And it's quite funny in that game that City were time wasting, to close out that game. So I wonder
Of
what,
course.
everybody will be talking, about that. But I just can't see, anything other than, Man City win. Haaland is in great form. He's looking like he's scoring every time he gets into the box. He's already scored 2 hat-tricks, 10 goals, far ahead of anybody else. I can only see that continue. I think Foden will come in. Haaland will score 1, and Gundogan looks like he's getting close in front of goal. So For me, I think it's a 3-0 for Man City. And there it is, guys. That's our prediction for the weekend. And before we go, let's